Hi, welcome to A Gray Barn Rising. I'm going to be reading this evening the poetry of one of my favorite poets, Kenneth Rexroth. Kenneth Rexroth is normally associated with San Francisco poetry and normally thought of as a San Francisco poet, but he was actually born in South Bend, Indiana in 1905. So I want to read some of his poems this evening from one of my favorite books, the collected shorter poems of Kenneth Rexroth. This is Bootsy Beagle. Bootsy, you want to say hi to everybody? Yeah? Okay, you going to help me read Kenneth Rexroth? Okay. So, Kenneth Rexroth, one of the things that he did every year was he would reread the entire set of Encyclopedia Britannica every year. And this is a poem of his that mentions that. It's entitled Gick to Har, G-I-C to H-A-R, which happens to be the particular volume of the encyclopedia that he's reading that evening. Gick to Har. It is late at night, cold and damp. The air is filled with tobacco smoke. My brain is worried and tired. I pick up the encyclopedia, the volume Gick to Har. It seems I have read everything in it. So many other nights like this. I sit staring empty-headed at the article Grosbeak, listening to the long rattle and pound of freight cars and switch engines in the distance. Suddenly I remember coming home from swimming in 10 Mile Creek over the long moraine in the early summer evening. My hair wet, smelling of water weeds and mud. I remember a sycamore in front of a ruined farmhouse, and instantly and clearly the revelation of a song of incredible purity and joy. My first rose-breasted grosbeak, facing the low sun, his body suffused with light. I was motionless and cold in the hot evening until he flew away. And I went on knowing in my 12th year one of the great things of my life had happened. 30 factories empty their refuse in the creek. The farm has given way to an impoverished suburb. On the parched lawns are starlings, alien and aggressive. And I am on the other side of the continent, 10 years in an unfriendly city. I love that poem for its simplicity and the way it builds so slowly and the accretion of imagery and emotion that just unfolds in that poem. And the ending, to my mind, really reminds me of the great Chinese poet Du Fu, who, from the Tang Dynasty, who Kenneth Rexroth also translated and also loved. The next poem I'd like to share with you is also from this book. I think I know it by heart, so I'm going to try to just recite it for you this evening. And it's a poem that Rexroth wrote for his mother, Delia, D-E-L-I-A, which I think is one of the most beautiful names for female names that I can imagine. And she died when he was young. She was very young. And in this poem, he is visiting her grave, and he's visiting her grave at a time in his life when he realizes he is actually older than she was when she left the body. It has this incredible opening where he even calls her by her first name. This is a coming-of-age, midlife coming-of-age poem for Kenneth Rexroth, where he is relating to his mother in these powerful ways. So imagine the speaker of this poem visiting the grave of his mother and realizing that he's older than she was when she left the body. And it's simply titled Delia Rexroth. Under your ill-kempt yellow roses, Delia, today you are younger than your son. 2.5 decades, the family monument sagged askew, and he overtook your half a life. On the other side of the country, near the willows by the slow river, deep in the earth, the white ribs retain the curve of your fervent, careful breast, the fine skull, the ardor of your brain. And in the fingers, the memory of Chopinitudes, and in the feet, slow waltzes and champagne two-step sleep. And the white full moon of midsummer that you watched awake all that last night watches history fill the deserts and oceans with corpses once again, and looks in the east window at me as I move past you to middle age and knowledge past your agony and waste. Such a beautiful, such a lovely poem that he's written for his mother. And I'd like to share one more poem with you this evening of Kenneth Rexroth's. It's a poem from his great book In Defense of the Earth, which appeared in 1956, and it's entitled The Reflecting Trees of Being and Not Being. One of the beautiful things for me, in my understanding of this poem, is that he begins with heartache and he begins with self-reflection and moves out into this great cosmogonic reach. And then ultimately the poem circles back into this gorgeous love poem for the beloved. I just love the movement. Rexroth could do that. Rexroth had this incredible capability of allowing his poems to move out into the cosmos and into the particular simultaneously. He was very gifted at that. I think I know this poem by heart as well, so I'm going to try to recite it for you this evening as well. The reflecting trees of being and not being. In my childhood, when I first saw myself unfolded in the triple mirrors, in my youth, when I pursued myself, wandering on wandering night-bound roads like a roving, masterless dog, when I met myself on sharp peaks of ice and tasted myself dissolved in the lulling heavy sea, in the talking night, in the spiraling stars. What did I know? What do I know now of myself, of the others? Blood flows out to the fleeing nebulae and flows back, red with all the worn space of space, old with all the time of time. It is my blood. I cannot taste in it as it leaves me more of myself than on its return. I can see in it trees of silence and fire. In the mirrors on its waves, I can see faces. Mostly, they are your face. On its streams, I can see the soft moonlight on the Canal du Midi. I can see the leaf shadows of the plane trees on the deep fluids of your eyes and the golden fires and lamps of years. That was the reflecting trees of being and not being from Kenneth Rexroth's great book In Defense of the Earth, which is collected, gathered here in the collected shorter poems of Kenneth Rexroth. He's a poet of great ecological concern, a great love poet, a poet of great cosmological reach, as I've mentioned. I hope he's someone that you'll continue to read, perhaps seek more of his work out. It's very, very rewarding, and I so enjoyed sharing the work of Kenneth Rexroth with you this evening.